What would you say would be an area where either you've struggled indirectly or through some of your clients, because you've served a lot of people by providing lots of remote teams for people over the years. And I know, you've sort of grown that and scaled it down at different times, depending what you're doing. What would you say would be one of the things that you've seen that, as well as getting the balance with communication and being effective with that, another area that you think people really need to, like a soft skill they need to develop to make the whole remote aspect a lot easier?
Perfect. That's a great question. But before I answer that, I just want to go back to what we were talking about, how I set up right from the get-going about feedback loop. So when we recruit any employee or anybody who's doing a project, one of the questions in the interview stage is, how important is feedback to you? I worded it slightly different, but that's the effect of it. So I need to know right from the get-going that the person who is coming into our culture has that already in them, that they believe in feedback, they believe in giving feedback and receiving feedback in every task they have. So for anybody listening there, you're starting out with remote teams, just get started straight away. You put that in there and it will do you a great deal of good later on, because you don't want people who are not in tune when it comes to feedback, because everything really rests on feedback, if we want to succeed with remote teams. Okay, going back to your question here. One of the areas that I have personally struggled, and I know a lot of people have struggled, is building trust. Again, it's a soft skill, but it is incredible. Now, trust, somebody says, you trust, and when it's gone, it's very difficult to build up, but you can build it over time. And if you can, number one, first, learn to trust yourself. Trust yourself. The way you get to a place where you trust yourself is understand your business. What is it that you're trying to do? What is it that needs to happen for you to reach that goal? Now, this is where perhaps a mentor comes in, or you modeling other successful businesses comes in. Because if you've seen it work somewhere, or you've done it before, it means your level of trust in the process, trust in what you're trying to do and achieve, gets really high. So number one, trust yourself. Trust that you're going to be doing the right thing, or you're doing the right thing. Again, I cannot overemphasize trusting yourself. It's very easy to say, I trust myself. But do you really trust yourself? Because at one point, somebody's going to question, why are we doing this? When you are not expecting it. And if you don't trust yourself, you're going to shake and they're going to say, I'll give you an example. It's a marketing campaign. You've seen it before being done and it was successful. Now you're telling somebody to implement that marketing campaign. And that person has been working for Bill Joe, somewhere else there. They've done it slightly different. And when you are trying to explain to them, do it this way, do it this way, do it this way. And then they'll say, this is the, if you didn't trust yourself at that point, you're going to say, I'm not so sure. Okay, let's try that. Now, there is a room where you want to have everybody's input in there. Absolutely. That's how leaders lead. They hear from both angles. But ultimately, at some point, you're going to make a decision. You have to make a decision as to, this is what we're going to do every single time. And if you don't trust yourself, when you are faced with so many suggestions that are, sometimes even contradicting yourself, you won't be able to communicate clearly the direction you want the organization to go. So I would say, take time, learn the process, or have a mentor, or model what has been proven to be successful. Be confident, but at the same time, be open to get some new ideas, but do not move away from your initial goals of, okay, this is what works, this is what my organization do, this is what we stand for. For example, you don't want to be swayed to and fro. You need to stay the path for what you stand for. And that comes from trusting yourself. And when you trust yourself, you will be able to trust others. Now, this is the second part of trust, is trusting your team to do their part. Steve Covey, the junior, many people know the highly effective people, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. But Steve Covey, this one, wrote a book called Speed of Trust. I highly recommend everybody watching this to read it. It's quite a few years old now, but has the fundamentals that are time tested. In the book, he talks about trust is the new currency. Talks about how, big organization like Warren Buffett could get into, buying a company within 30 days with all due diligence and being done in all areas. And in 30 days, when other companies will have to take maybe 18 months, to do that. The differentiating thing there is trust. Trust. If you can learn to trust your team after you've done all your due diligence to get them on board, and then you learn to delegate, you then leave them to do that. When they sense that you trust them, magic happens. When they know that you have given them authority to execute according to the plan, they will make you fly. They will make you look good. In fact, they make your business grow. So again, develop the skill of trusting yourself, trusting your team, and be transparent in the process and become very, very reliable without mentioning consistency. If you do these few things, it is amazing how successful you can be working with anybody online. It doesn't matter where they come from. You get success to some degree, of course.
Yeah.
There are no guarantees, but you certainly get some success.
No, that's really good. Yeah. I was thinking, for people that are listening and thinking, well, my team's just so far away, I'll try the communication thing. I can obviously work on that. How do I really get them to trust me? Okay, I'll try a few things with that and sort of talk a bit more to them and be straightforward. But what would you say for people, leaders that think they just feel there's a disconnection, which will come from bad communication, which will come from a lack of trust as well? But is there any other area where you feel if people understood this or they grasp this, then that will really help them as well? Because in some ways, like, the world is a big place because we're in lots of different nations working together, and yet it's a very small place because we can all be connected. We can all have sort of communications and interactions at any point, really. So is there any other areas where you think actually you need to sort out your communication skills, you need to build the trust as well, and then there's also another golden factor?
Absolutely. Appreciate the cultural sensitivity. I work here in England. I've got some of my colleagues in Canada, in the US, in Africa. Over the years now, I've worked with people from all walks of life. The thing, they all want to do a good job. That's how I start. All of them, they want to do an exceptional job. Nobody comes in and say, I'm going to do a terrible job. So that's my starting point. I lead with trust. I lead with a goodwill that this person is applying to work with me, or is taking on a job. If it is like a gig, is taking on because they, number one, feel they're confident in executing what they want to do, what they say they will do. Number two, they are willing to go over and above. So I lead with that. So when I communicate with them, it doesn't matter which culture they are from, they will, something happens when you show that you trust somebody before they prove that they can be trustworthy. They would want to meet that expectation, because people rise to the expectation you set up for them. If your expectation is very high, they will rise to that. If it is very low, they will come to that as well. That's one thing. Number two, I always remember that I'm talking to somebody from a different culture. What is important for them could maybe not as important for me, but how can I get them to work with me in these times? Again, I'll give you an example. In my earlier days, working with my Philippines team, 7 o'clock, dinner time was a non-negotiable time for them to be, I'll be in a busy conference call with one of my assistants helping me to do that. If it is 7 o'clock at the time, it's dinner time, it is dinner time. And they will say, oh, I'm afraid I really need to go and have my dinner time with family. It may be different now, but right back then when I was doing it, at first I used to get frustrated. I said, this is a business call, you can't leave me on here. I've got you to help me here this time. Until it dawned on me that the culture of a family eating together at a certain times is far more stronger than a business call. So I started arranging my phone calls around their meals and around my time here, so that it's a win-win situation. But as long as I kept on doing that, I was insensitive to their culture and also not being able to accommodate their needs. So, now when I'm hiring, say, an American, I know what is important to them. I give them that flexibility. If I'm hiring from Romania, for example, I give them that, what they need. Again, you don't know this first time, but with time, this becomes really, really clear. So just to recap, become culturally sensitive, when you're doing that. If you're hiring in the UK, become aware. What is it? What is important? What do they prioritize? If you're hiring abroad, just do a little bit of research. It'll pay off tremendously. For example, I know we're out of time here looking at my time. In places like the Philippines, there is the 12th month. When you're paying your people on a salary, they expect the 12th month. In the beginning, I didn't know what the 12th month was. Now I do know. So when somebody works for me, I automatically put it on my plan that I will be paying for the 12th month. Or the extra is, like we call it, the bonus here, which is equivalent to a bonus in the United Kingdom. It is expected. Oftentimes they don't tell you that, but when they're working in their own country, they're accustomed to that. And by you as a business owner, as a leader, the 13th month, I'm saying 12th month, the 13th month, I beg your pardon.
Yeah.
And if you inbuilt that, it means their level of trust, they're working together with them, even though you're foreign. Like you're out of the Philippines, you understand that their level of dedication goes up, because not everybody does that. They think, that's why we win, because everybody say, oh yeah, I'm paying you money to do this. No. Go over and above a little bit more. You separate yourself from the rest of the 99% of people who wants to do that are just after getting things done and not caring for the person who is doing. What are their cultural expectations? How do they do things? That little thing, that little differentiation will go a long way, and it will make you very happy with the results that you'll be getting.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's really good. It reminds me of something I heard John Maxwell say recently, actually, about when you do the extra thing, it takes you out of the people pile, out of the general, what everybody normally does. It's like you get higher. And that's how leaders should be, isn't it? We should be setting a higher standard so that other people can then, as you say, the expectation we put on people, if we're not expecting much from our team, they're not going to perform that well. Whereas if we set healthy but sort of good growth expectations on what we think they're capable of, then they're going to think, actually, boss reckons I can do this.
That's
I
right.
must be able to do it then. And they almost, if they don't have that self-belief, they sort of latch onto yours and use the energy that you provide until they then realize, actually, he was right, I can do it, or it's not as hard as what I thought it was. So yeah, no, that's really,
What a privilege, Trevor,
yeah,
that we as leaders have, that we can help people grow and develop into something bigger, something that they did not recognize themselves can do. What a privilege. I find that truly inspiring, that I can be somebody that helps certain individual rise up higher. Because when I set an expectation, and they just rightly you say that my boss thinks I can do this, it will unleash the creativity in them to want to find a way to live up to that expectation, especially if you set it high enough that it's believable for them, not too high enough that it becomes like, oh, come on now. It has to be somewhat believable for them, and you push them. And if you're a great leader, not just a leader, you provide the system, the step-by-step of how to get there. Because when you do that, oh my goodness, you are taking someone's life to another level. And what you do for one person, that they, if it works for them, they will be inspired to do for the other person. It is the natural law of perpetuating the good behavior. We all do it. We all want it.
yeah,
And
no,
I
it's really
encourage
good.
people to do that as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. I know as well, you touch on, we won't go into it now, we'll let people read the book, but just as a taster, you touch on the fact of resourcing people well, as it also such a key aspect of leading well, but also supporting them and helping them be able to be everything that they can be as well. So that's really good. Thanks for everything that you've shared. We are sort of out of time really for now, but it's packed with lots of practical things. I like the way you communicate the practical side of things that, way back when we first started the conversation, it's like we're all using outsourcing and remote teams and interacting a lot more on a day-to-day basis. We just don't realize it. So it's good to be reminded of that. And also I like the bit where you said about feedback, where you set the expectation that, this is a feedback culture within the organization. Because a lot of the time, like we want feedback from the boss, from whoever we're kind of working for. We want to hear good feedback and all that. And we don't necessarily realize that, but it's just as important to be able to give that feedback to whoever's leading you as well, to help them, set the culture and make adjustments, whatever they need to do. So lots more. I love chatting with you about leadership. We could talk for hours, days, weeks, probably longer on that, just because it's something that we're living, it's something that we're learning, and we're keen to grow more. But it's been really good what you've shared today. For everybody as well listening, if you haven't yet got the book, at least you've heard it's out now. Grab hold of a copy. It's one of those things you can just keep referring back to. Get a couple of copies for your team members as well. Wherever people are within your team, they're no doubt leading in different areas as well, and you'll be developing them to take on different things, as Yeukai mentioned. So make sure you equip them with the skills that they need, the information that will help them on their journey as well. Any closing comments just as we wrap this episode up, Yeukai?
I appreciate that final question. One thing I had prepared to talk about here was flexibility. Working remotely, Trevor, requires enormous amount of flexibility. And if you can train yourself to be flexible slightly, you will get more result. In fact, it is now proven that the people who go further in life, in business or in any area of life, are the people who are flexible, who are able to adjust with the new information coming in, with the new behaviors, rather than people who say, that's what I want done, it has to be done this way all the time. You get left behind, and even your team will leave you. So learn to be flexible, learn to go with the flow. Somebody once said to me, look at the water, just, you never find water going against the grain. It always flows downwards. It's flexible, and it erodes massive pieces of rocks because it is flexible. So can I encourage you, in your journey of managing remote teams, be flexible. Look at how can you do things slightly different and change with time. And then lastly, man, You are great, and ladies, you're great. Thank you for taking time to listen to this conversation, and also reading the book, and also sharing it with everybody. It is people like you that we are truly counting on to take an action and really make our world even a better place. Not only our world. When we talk about our world, it makes it sound like too big. I'm talking about your family, your community, your church, your small town. When you and I apply the principles we are using here, we are talking about in the book, you're truly becoming a better version of you, a better person. And when you become a better person, you attract opportunities, you attract, great people who want to align with you, and you begin to do even greater things. And for me, what is very important to me is you'll be able to create value for other people, make other people's lives far much better. That's it, Trevor. Thank you.
No, it's brilliant. No, absolutely brilliant. Yeah, we were flexible at the end there, and we stretched the episode a little bit because we can, and that's what it's all about. So no, it's really good. Yeah, thank you for that. So for everybody listening, just as we wrap this up for now, make sure you get hold of the book, but also catch the other episodes. So we've got Anastasia, she's chatting, Kerry as well. We've got Elaine, we've got Rick, we've got Dancho, a whole host of experts in different areas that can really help. Wherever you are on your leadership journey, I guarantee you there'll be something that you can do, something that you can act on that will enhance where you are to where you want to get to, and you'll take your team with you as well. So as we leave you for now, just remember that we believe in you and we believe in your potential. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.